The Canon EOS R6 Mark II has only been on the market for a couple of months, but it's already received its first firmware update. The only question is, should you go ahead and apply this firmware update, or should you wait? Details coming up, but first, please do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter, subscribe, choose all notifications, like, comment, and all that good stuff, as it really helps this channel grow. You can download Canon Firmware 1.1.1 for the Canon EOS R6 Mark II from Canon's website, Canon USA, Canon UK, Canon Japan. Worldwide, it's available for download, and it's not a very big update, but it does provide some enhancements and bug fixes. According to the release notes, Firmware 1.1.1 adds support for the Canon Speedlight EL5, so that's a nice enhancement. The startup time has been reduced if Bluetooth's enabled, and if you do any sort of file transfers, whether it's FTP, FTPS, or secure FTP, it's now going to work regardless of what type of IP system you're using, whether it's IP version 4 or IP version 6. And of course, as we see with any Canon firmware update, we get various minor bug fixes. So what are those? Well, we don't know because they're not listed in the firmware notes. And I do wish Canon would provide us some sort of compendium detailing what these minor bug fixes are because, well, it helps us make an informed decision. But now to answer 3 of your questions that I get asked whenever I publish a video about firmware updates. The first is, should I apply this update or should I wait? Well, the first question you need to ask yourself is there anything in this firmware update that you need right away? For example, do you shoot with a Speedlight EL5? If you do, and it's necessary for your work, then yes, I think applying this firmware update now would be a good idea. However, if you don't need it right now, I would wait, because whenever you apply a firmware update, not only does it fix things and provide enhancements, but it quite often introduces other bugs which have to be fixed in another firmware update. And sometimes these bugs can actually brick a camera. We had this with the Canon EOS R6, the Mark I. I think it was firmware 1.3.0 or 1.4.0. The next question is the firmware cumulative? Meaning that if I apply this firmware update, does it apply any previous other firmware updates, or do I have to apply the firmware updates in sequence? Well, for the Canon EOS R6 Mark II, there are no previous firmware updates. Despite the naming 1.1.1, there was no 1.1.0 or anything else. So this is the first firmware update. You can go ahead and apply it without worrying about previous updates. But if we look at Canon's history when applying firmware updates, for example, the Canon EOS R5, if you just bought the camera and it has firmware 1.2 on it, you can download firmware 1.7 and apply it to the camera, and every single enhancement and update prior to that will be applied to the camera. And if you're ever in doubt, I highly recommend reading the release notes. Don't just wait for me to do it. If you see in the release notes, it's going to detail everything that this firmware update is going to apply. And that includes any previous firmware updates and what they apply as well. So always read the release notes and always take your time. Don't rush into applying a firmware update. Don't be the first to the, well, as we say in the software industry, on the bleeding edge, because on the bleeding edge, you always get cut. It doesn't hurt to wait a week or two, unless, of course, the enhancement is essential for your work. And by and large, this is a relatively minor update. Now, if you're using IP version 6, if you're shooting with a Canon EL5 Speedlight, or if you're doing regular transfers, then yes, this is a firmware update that you'll probably want to apply. But at this point, I haven't seen any issues regarding the firmware in any way whatsoever. And the last question is this firmware update for the Canon EOS R6 Mark II or also for the Mark I? Simple question is, or simple answer is, it's only for the Mark II. There is no firmware update for the Mark I. One other note, if you own the Canon EOS R5, or if you're looking to purchase the Canon EOS R5, there's a pretty big sale on right now. Over Christmas and Black Friday, you're able to get the Canon EOS R5 for about $200 off US. That discount has now jumped to $400 off, and according to B&H, it ends on February the 12th. But I also checked in Canada. I wanted to see if this was a worldwide sale or not. And the answer is yes and no. In Canada, you can get the Canon EOS R5 for $300 off at $49.99, down from $52.99, so that's a pretty sizable deal as well. The Canon EOS R5C is also on sale, $400 off in the US, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's on sale in Canada as well. However, if you live in Europe, if you live in the United Kingdom or Australia, well, sources tell me that it's not on sale there. So why? What's the reason? Why does Canada and the United States get all the love? Well, I think it's purely down to exchange rates. You see that the Canadian dollar has held up well against the US dollar, which has gained about 30% against the Japanese yen. However, the euro has lost around 5% to the US dollar, and as far as the British pound, it's lost about 8% to the US dollar. So I think that's why we're seeing a slightly slower discount or slightly lower discount in Canada of $300 off Canadian, which works out to be around just over $200 US, versus a $400 savings in the United States. And in other countries, we're not seeing a discount in any way whatsoever. But what's remarkable about Canada and the United States is these discounts make the Canon EOS R5 cheaper than when it was introduced. So some pretty good discounts on the Canon EOS R5 or the R5C. And if you're interested in purchasing either of those two cameras, well then consider using my affiliate links down below for Amazon.com or B&H, because it really does help support the channel. And for those of you that have bought cameras and gear using those affiliate links, thank you so much. It's very much appreciated. But that's it for now. If you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera gear, news, and rumors, well then please subscribe and choose all notifications. I cover all the major camera gear, all the major news and rumors. And for all the minor news and rumors, I almost said numers again, for all the minor news and rumors, for all the major camera brands or even the minor camera brands, well, those are all covered by my Twitter site, so please follow me on Twitter, Filmmaker, which stands for Ordinary Filmmaker, and I publish tons of stories there every day, including price discounts, such as the Canon EOS R5 and the R5C. But that's it for now. I hope you have yourself a very good weekend. It's a little bit cold here today, but sunny, so I'm looking forward to getting outside and enjoying the weather. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have yourself a great weekend.